Welcome to Formulas for the Everyday Admin Subtitle Placeholder. I forgot to update my PowerPoint slide. My name is Steve Molis. I'm a Salesforce admin / developer, and want to share some of my favorite formulas that I've written over the years. Tell you a little bit about myself. How many people are members of the Trailblazer community? Been on Answers, the Answers Forum, or Idea Exchange. So this is my avatar if you are in the Answers community. A little bit about myself. I'm a Salesforce MVP. I've been an MVP since they first started the program in 2010. I dropped out of community college with a 0.67 GPA after just 2 semesters, and I'm a self-taught Salesforce admin. My company started using Salesforce in 2003. I was in a meeting. I was working as a Lotus Domino developer, and I was in a meeting, and my boss said, we're getting this thing called Salesforce, and you're going to learn it, and then you're going to own it. I joked that I started off with 30 users, and it was 30% of my time, and now I have 400 users, and it's 400% of my time. I'm also a world's record holder. I hold the world record for the most swears ever said on stage by a speaker at Dreamforce. The previous record was 0, held by every other speaker at Dreamforce before or since. So Salesforce has told me that I need to have my own safe harbor slide. I will try to keep it rated PG-13. So I want to share some of my favorite formulas that I've written. I want to show you how to use some basic math and validation rules. A formula I call the ultimate parent account that can be used to create really nice opportunity pipeline reports if you've got an account hierarchy in your org. Some quick and easy dynamic report filters that you can build. How to unlock some of the hidden stuff that's behind the scenes in the opportunity stage pick list field and do some cool stuff with that. Identifying the amount of revenue that's open, closed, won, and lost in report summary formulas. And then if we have time, I want to share what I consider to be the greatest formula ever written. It was not written by me, which probably explains why it is the greatest formula ever written. So a show of hands, how many people have never written a formula before or consider themselves formula novices? Okay, a couple of hands. So this is the formula editor. This is where you're going to be writing formula fields, validation rules, workflow rules, processes, and it will not bite. These buttons will not bite you. They really are there to help. And this is where you're going to be building a lot of this stuff. I want to call out a couple of these buttons in particular. First and foremost is the insert field button. When you are writing a formula, you have to use what's called the API field name. And that's not necessarily the same thing that you see on the screen when you're looking at a record. A perfect example is opportunity stage. The API field name for opportunity stage is not stage. It's stage name with a capital S and a capital N and no blank space in between. And that's what you need to use when you're writing a formula that evaluates the opportunity stage field. Another button I want to call out is the insert function button. When you select a function from this menu, Salesforce automatically provides a syntactically correct representation of that function with a little summary of what that function does and how it can be used, with a link to the online help and training entry for that function. It opens up all that information in another tab right there while you're working on a formula. I use these buttons all the time. I've written thousands of formulas. I use these buttons all the time. I'm a terrible typist. I don't know the ins and outs of every function off the top of my head. I don't know the correct spelling and punctuation of every single API field name in my org. So the first formula I want to show you, it uses some basic math to write what would have been a pretty complex validation rule. So it came from a question that was posted on the Answers community. And this guy, Bart Wood, he was trying to write a validation rule that would prevent his users from selecting a previous stage in his sales process. For his company, their sales stages were like milestones. A deal could only move along going forward until its inevitable end as either closed, won, or closed, lost. A deal couldn't be prospected and then move to proposal submitted and then back to prospect again. He wanted the stages to be sequential. And he posted his first attempt at writing that validation rule using a function called isPickVal. He had 17 stages in his sales process. I opened up an Excel spreadsheet to figure it out. He would have needed over 150 isPickVal statements to cover every possible combination of previous and current stages. So he was using a function called isPickVal. And isPickVal is a function that's purpose-built to evaluate a pick list field like stage and look for a value and then do something based on that value. But you can see that it's not that efficient. If you had a pick list field about what's the weather like outside, you have to go to the pick list field, ask it what the weather's like, and then give it a result based on that value. But if it doesn't find that value, you have to open up another isPickVal and give it the next value you're looking for and the next action to perform. And you've got to open up another isPickVal. And like I said, he had 17 stages. So there's another function called case, and case is a bit more efficient. With case, you go to the field one time, you give it the list of values to look for and the list of actions to perform. So here's what I did with case to solve his problem. I used the case function, and I evaluated the stage name pick list field. And using the case function, I basically converted every single stage in his process. I mean, he had 17. I condensed this down for the screenshot. I converted every single stage into a numeric value in ascending order. Then I copied and pasted what I built, and I pasted it back into the same formula, and I wrapped a prior value function around to do the same thing with the previously selected stage. Then I just stuck a less than symbol in between the two case functions. So I don't care what the stage name is called. I'm just comparing the number of the current stage against the number of the previously selected stage. And if that number is less in value than the previously selected stage, the user can't save the record. They have to leave the opportunity in the same stage or move it forward. Now, I made closed won and closed lost both equal to 6 because they are the final stage. The user doesn't have to go through every single stage. They can go from cultivation to closed lost, but they can't go from cultivation to proposal submitted back to cultivation. I mean, simple, basic math. I mean, I may have flunked out of community college, but even I know that 2 is less than 3, 4, and 5. So this next one is what I call the ultimate parent account. How many people have account hierarchies on their org? And you try to write an opportunity pipeline report, and you try to group it by the parent, that standard parent account field, and the accounts that don't have a parent account, there's just a blank space there. So I built this formula. I have the same problem on my org. You get this. The accounts that have no parent or are a parent, so they have no parent, you get this blank space there. Then you've got a situation like this where Octan is the parent company of Lego and United Oil and Gas, but United Oil and Gas also has 3 subsidiaries. So the revenue for the subsidiaries is down here. The revenue for Octan is up here. And I have a saying, if you build a report and the people who are looking at that report need to pull out a piece of paper and a pencil or a calculator to figure out what that report is telling them, you built a shitty report. And builder of shitty reports is not something that you want to have on your resume. So this is what I did. There's a function, and then if you try to do it in a chart to maybe make some sense of it, you get this blank space for the accounts that have no parent. And then to get the opportunity revenue for Octan, you've got to add up the yellow and the red with the blue, with the green and the blue. So here's what I did. I used a function called blank value. And what blank value does, it evaluates a field. And if the field is not blank, it uses that field in that formula, whatever that formula is doing. If it's a number or currency field, it uses it to perform math if you want to do that. But if the field is blank, you can provide a substitute. And that substitute can be another field, or it could be a text value, or a numeric value. Okay, if this field has been left blank, then use this other number for the math that I want to do in the formula. So here's what I did. I used the blank value function, and then in the formula editor, I clicked that Insert Field button, and I started on the account object. I created a custom field on the account object, and I stepped into the account object, and you're in the formula editor, and you click that Insert Field button. Every time you see one of these little carets, that indicates that that's a lookup field, and you can step through that lookup field into that other record or that other object. So I started at the account object, and I stepped through the parent account lookup field, and then I stepped through that into the other account, and I stepped through the parent account field on that account. And I kept on stepping up and up and up through each and every one of those parent accounts. I did a little research on my org, and I found that the highest account hierarchy that I had was 4 accounts. So I built myself a little bit of a buffer. I went up to 6. So I kept on stepping up and up and up. And so I built a blank value that went to the parent account name. But here's the thing. I don't know if the account that I'm on has a parent. That account may be the top account in the hierarchy. There may be no hierarchy at all. Or it might be an account in the middle of the account hierarchy. I don't know that. That field may be blank. So I opened up another blank value to provide a substitute if that happened. And I went up to the parent account and got that account name. But I don't know if that's going to be blank or not. So I opened up another blank value inside of that, and I went up 3 levels. Then I opened up another one and went up 2 levels. Then I opened up another one and went up 1. And I figured out if I've gone all the way up and down through all those steps, and there is no parent account, then I probably am on the parent account. So just give me the account name. So this is a custom formula field. And the cool thing about custom fields, especially formula fields, is the second you hit save and commit that formula field to the database, it's there on every single record, and it's also there in every single standard report type of that object. It's right there ready for you to use. So this is the same exact report that I started out with. But after I created it, my ultimate parent field is there on the account object. It's there for me to use. So I grab it, drag it into my report, and I replace the standard parent account that I was using as my summary grouping with my new ultimate parent account. This is the same report we started out with. But now, all of the revenue for Octan and all of its subsidiaries is here in one nice, neat bucket. You can see that Octan and all of its subsidiaries have $6.9 million of revenue without a piece of paper and a pencil or a calculator. And you can see that Warnham Hogg and its subsidiary, Dunder Mifflin, they have $2.7 million worth of revenue. And all of those standalone accounts, they're not here on an island with a blank space in their report. Their account name has been copied over because they are the ultimate parent in that hierarchy. And now in a chart, all of your Octan revenue in one nice, neat stack. All of your Warnham Hogg and Dunder Mifflin revenue in one nice, neat stack. And your standalone accounts, all their revenue in one nice, neat block. All using a simple formula text field and a nested blank value function. So these next couple, I'm going to show you how to create some formulas that you can use to create some dynamic report filters. This first one, this came from a question that a woman posted named Kelly Knudsen. She posted this back in 2013 on the Answers community. She was trying to build a report that would show side by side the month-to-date revenue but she wanted the report to be dynamic. She didn't want to have to edit the report filters every time she reran the report. So what she was trying to do was run a report that would show month by month, side by side, what their sales were from the first day of the month until that day of the month. But if she ran the report a week later, she wanted to automatically update to capture those additional days worth of data. She didn't want to have to edit the report filter criteria every time she reran it. She wanted it to be dynamic. So the solution I came up with, I used a couple of functions called day and today, and I used a less than or equal to operator. So if you've never used day or today, what the day function does, it evaluates either a date field or a date value, and it extracts the number of the day. So if an opportunity had a close date of December 25th, 2017, and you wrap a day function around the close date field, it's going to return the number 25. The today function returns whatever the current day is. If you wrote a formula right now and just put today in the formula, it would return March 8th, 2019. And you can wrap a day around today, and it will just return the number 8. So the formula that I built was just a simple formula field on the opportunity object that returned a checkbox. That's all it does. It returns either a checked checkbox or an unchecked checkbox. And here's the formula. I compare the day of the close date, the number of the day, to the number of today's date, and if the close date is less than or equal to today's date, the checkbox field is checked. Otherwise, it's unchecked. Now, you can open up, like I said, the second you hit save on that field, it's there in every single standard opportunity report, and it would work on cases if you use cases. It will work on any date field that you're tracking in your org. Your new month-to-date checkbox field is right there available. You grab it, and you use it as your report filter criteria. So now you can get a report like this. So I ran this on the 18th of the month. This is the first 18 days of revenue for every month. And I never have to update this report filter for as long as I run this report. And a cool thing, I was playing around with it after I built it. I built it for Kelly Knudsen on the ANSYS community. But I was playing around with it one day, and instead of using the checkbox field as your report filter, you can actually use it as a report grouping. And then you can do stuff like this. You can see month by month how much money has come in the first 8 days of the month, and how much money came in after today's date for the rest of the month. So you can maybe identify trends. Maybe you're looking at this and you can see, like, wow, our customer behavior is really changing. They seem to be making most of their purchases at the end. Maybe we should make some changes to how we do our production line and how we stock our inventory. And maybe we should structure how we run some of our marketing campaigns around this information. All using a simple formula checkbox field as either a report filter or a report grouping. So this next one, this one was for a question that somebody posted on the community. They were trying to do the same thing, but they were trying to do it for the current month of the year. They wanted to show in a report, side by side, year by year, how much money came in from the beginning of the year to whatever month it was. And again, they didn't want to have to rewrite the report filters every time they ran the report. And you have to do that because if you're comparing previous years, you've got the full 12 months of data for all those previous years. So if you want your report to look nice and neat, you've got to filter them out somehow. So you're constantly updating those report filters every time another month goes by. So I use the today function, and a companion to the day function is called month. And it does the same thing, but it goes into a date field or a date value, and it extracts the number of the month. And there's another function called year that extracts the year from a date field or date value. And there's a function called date, and what date does, it builds a date value based on 3 numbers that you provide: the year, the month, the day. So here's a couple of examples. So if the close date of the opportunity was December 25th, 2018, month is going to return the number 12. Month today would return the number 3. Year on the close date would return the number 2018. And so to calculate that duration, I need to count how many months there were between the opportunity close date and the first day of that year. So I had to use the date function to build a January 1st. But I need it to be dynamic, because every year the opportunity close dates are going to be changing. So I used year close date to provide me with the number of the year the opportunity closed. I know the year starts on January 1st, so I just hard code in the numbers 1 and 1 for January and the 1st of January. So here are my formulas. So this one, I'm just comparing the number of the month of the close date to the number of today's month, and if they are less than or equal, I return a checked checkbox field. Otherwise, I return an unchecked checkbox field. Now, this formula, this would give you all of the revenue for the month of March if you were to run this, use this as your report filter. But some people, they wanted to be more precise. They wanted to have only the revenue for up to that day of the year. So for that, I had to write a slightly more complex formula. I had to count the number of days between the opportunity close date and January 1st of the year that the opportunity closed. That gave me the number of the day of the year that that opportunity closed. Then I had to do the same calculation and figure out what is the number day of the year for today's date. And again, I'm just doing some basic math. I'm comparing those 2 numbers together, and if they are less than or equal to, I return a checked or an unchecked checkbox. But here's the thing. Once I built this formula field, this checkbox, it's now available in every standard opportunity report to be used as a report filter or a report grouping. You grab your formula checkbox field, you add it as your report filter, you hit save, and you never have to touch that report ever again. I built that formula probably 5 years ago, and I've never had to update those reports. And neither of my users, which makes my life easier. And you can see year by year, month by month, side by side, all using that formula checkbox field as your report filter. So now I want to share what I call the hidden magic of the opportunity stage field. There's a little backstory to this one. You know, I'm a self-taught admin. I kind of had Salesforce kind of thrown at me, and I didn't really know what I was doing when I was just getting started, so I made a lot of rookie mistakes. And one of my mistakes was, as my org grew and we added more users and different sales teams to the org, they had their own internal processes that they liked to follow, and they had their own way of selling things, and they sold different things. And so they wanted to have their own stages, because they looked at the opportunity stage pick list and they're like, well, we don't really have like a prospecting stage. We got this thing called cultivation. We don't have this stage. We've got this other thing that we do. So, and I couldn't get them to agree on what to call some of the stages. So I gave them each their own record type and each their own sales process with their own sales stages, which was fine for them because they only looked at their own sales, you know, when they were running a report or something like that. But when our CFO wanted to look at a sales pipeline report, I just show him something like this and try to keep a straight face and also try to keep my job. I mean, I'm not lying. It was so bad, they couldn't even agree on what to call a win. One team wanted to call it closed won. Another team wanted to just call it win. Another team thought that the users didn't got confused between the stage and the probability, so they wanted me to put the probability value into the stage name. Another team saw that and liked it, so they wanted me to do it with their stages, but they wanted to have the probability before the word in the stage pick list. And again, it didn't matter to them because when they ran a pipeline report, all they saw was their 5 or 6 stages. But when I ran something for the executives, they saw 7 different versions of closed won, 9 versions of closed lost, and 52 flavors of open. I mean, nobody wants to look at that. So here's what I did. I noticed when I was creating all these new stage names for all these sales teams that stage isn't like any other pick list in Salesforce. When you add a new stage value to the pick list field, Salesforce asks you for a couple of other pieces of information. It asks you, what's the default probability for this stage? What's the default forecast category for this stage? And it asks you, what type is this stage? And there were only 3 choices in this pick list field: open, closed won, and closed lost. Every stage, no matter how many you've got, is either open, closed won, or closed lost. And here's the thing. Behind the scenes, when a user selects a stage on an opportunity, Salesforce uses this type that's connected to that stage to set 2 hidden checkbox fields called closed and won. Every opportunity is either closed or it's not closed. Every opportunity is either won or it's not won. So I created a custom field on the opportunity object. I selected formula as my data type, text as my result type, and I evaluated that is won checkbox field. And like I said, the field is called won, but you've got to use the API field name in a formula. So the API field name is actually is won with a capital I, a capital W, and no blank space in between. So I just said if is won equals true, which means that it's checked, return the word won. This is what's called a nested if statement. So if statements, well, the way an if statement works, you give it a criteria that you're looking for, and if that criteria is met, you give it an action to perform. But if the criteria is not met, you've got to give it another action to perform to what to do otherwise. But you can create what's called a nested if statement, and so your else result can actually be another set of instructions. So I nested this second if inside of the first if. So if is won equals true, return the word won. But if is won is not true, then I go and I check to see if is closed is false or unchecked. If something is not a win and it's not closed, then it's open. And they're mutually exclusive. Any record that meets this criteria gets stamped with the word won. Any record that meets this criteria gets stamped with the word open. The only thing left can be the losses. So I simply return the word lost and close out my nested if statement. Now I can get a report that looks like this. All my pipeline revenue in 3 nice, neat buckets. What's won, what's lost, what's open. Now, some people might say, well, why not use report buckets? Well, I built this because buckets didn't even exist at the time. They weren't even a thing. They weren't even on the roadmap. And I love buckets, don't get me wrong, but they have some shortcomings. One of them is that they're not portable from report to report to report. You got 72 opportunity stages. You build yourself a report bucket that just says open, closed, lost, closed, won. You add all those stages into those 3 report buckets. Congratulations, you just built a report. How many other opportunity pipeline reports do you have in your org? I got a mature org. My org's been around since 2003. I've literally got hundreds of opportunity reports. Do I want to have to rebuild that bucket 300 times? No. Formula fields, again, the second you hit save on that formula field, it's automatically available in every single standard report type and every report that references that report type. You just open the report, grab your formula field, and add it as a report grouping. Now, a word of advice, no matter how simple your formula may be, always create a report or a list view that shows the fields that your formula is evaluating and your formula results side by side. You can write a syntactically correct formula that has flawed logic. In the formula editor, you've got this check syntax button. So here's my formula. If is 1, true. If is closed, false. Return 1, open, lost. So I click the check syntax button. Congratulations, no syntax errors. Merge fields, you're under the 5K compile size limit. Great. Here is a completely wrong version of that formula. If is 1 equals false, return the word 1. If is closed equals true, return the word open. That's completely flawed logic, but it's syntactically correct. My commas and functions are in the right place. The check syntax button doesn't check your logic. It only checks your syntax. So always create a report or a list view to QC your work. So some other things you can do, when I discovered that little thing to help solve my reporting problem, I noticed that you can use the closed checkbox field and the one checkbox field in reports, and they're great. They give you the count of opportunities that are closed. They give you the count of opportunities that have been won. But what if you need to get the count of opportunities that are open and the count of opportunities that are lost? And you don't want to burn through a report summary grouping. You've only got 3 report summary groupings in a report, or 4 if you're using a matrix report. And do you really want to burn through them all the time? Sometimes you need those summary groupings to display other information, like the opportunity owner's name, the industry that the account the opportunity is with, the opportunity close date, or something like that. So those report summary groupings are a precious commodity. So here's what I did. I created 2 custom formula checkbox fields on my opportunity object. The first one I called open. And there's my formula. Is closed equals false. That's it. And I created another one called lost. To get the loss, I had to evaluate not only is it closed equals true, but is it 1 equals false. But as soon as I hit save, those fields are available to be added to a report, and I'm not burning through a report summary grouping here. I'm just adding the fields to the report and selecting summarize sum to give me the count. I've still got 3 more groupings I could play with if this was a matrix report, or 2 more groupings in a summary report. And now, I did that, and then report summary formulas came out. How many people have written report summary formulas? They can be a little bit intimidating. When they first came out, I was really frustrated. I was like, what the hell? Did I forget how to write a formula? Like, nothing I'm writing works. So they can be a little bit tricky. But using our custom checkbox fields that we created, here's the thing. In the formula, you used words true or false, but Salesforce actually stores the checked or unchecked value as a 1 or a 0. And you can add 1s and 0s and do math with them. So to get the percent of opportunities that are open, because any healthy sales pipeline always has a certain percent of open opportunities. If you close and win everything, that's great. But what happens when those contracts end? If you have an empty sales pipeline, that's not good. So you want to have a certain percentage of open opportunities. Well, how do you measure the percent of open opportunities? In an opportunity report, you can create a report summary formula, and using our open checkbox field that we just created, we can divide the sum of open, which will be Salesforce adding up all those little 1s and 0s in our checkbox field, and adding up all those 1s and simply dividing it by the row count in the report. Now we can get the percent of opportunities that are open. And to get the percent of opportunities that were won, we can divide the count of opportunities that were won by the count of opportunities that were closed. Well, those are the standard checkbox fields. But what about the percent that were lost? For that, we can use our custom lost checkbox field, add up all those little 1s and 0s, and divide that by the sum of the closed. So now, in the exact same report, this is the same report that we started off with, Not only am I summing, getting the count of open, closed, won, and lost, now I can get the percent of open, closed, won, and lost using those two little checkbox fields. Now, sometimes you want to get the count, but sometimes you got to do math with the opportunity dollar amount. That gets really tricky in report summary formulas. It's really difficult to perform math on the amount of money that's been won, the amount of money that's been lost, because that's that one checkbox field that's giving you the record count, not the revenue sum. So to get around that, I created 4 custom fields on my opportunity object, and I'm returning a currency result. And to get the count of money that's been open, that is open, I just evaluate the is closed checkbox field, and if it's false, I return the amount of that opportunity. Otherwise, I return 0. To get the dollar amount closed, I evaluate the closed checkbox, but this time I check to see if it's true, and if it is, I return the opportunity amount. Otherwise, I return 0. To get the amount won, I evaluate as 1. To get the amount lost, I check to see if it is closed but not lost, and I return the opportunity amount, or I return a 0. So again, checking my work, I can add those to this report and check the numbers, make sure they're correct. But now, the really cool thing is now I can use those fields in report summary formulas to do some calculations like this. What percent of money is open? I can take that amount open field that I just created and divide that by the sum of all revenue in the standard opportunity amount. The percent of money that's been won. I can divide the sum of my amount won custom field that I just created by the amount closed sum custom field that I created to get the percent of money that's been won. And I can do the same thing to get the percent of money that's been lost. And again, this is the same report that we started off with, but using the is closed and is won checkbox fields and some basic math. Now I can show that in a report. And again, I still haven't added a single extra report summary grouping to this report. The only summary grouping in this entire report is opportunity owner. I've still got 2 more summary groupings I could add to this report. I could break it out by industry, by close date, if I needed to. I'm not wasting those precious report summary groups using these formula fields. So, Jody, how are we doing on time? Do I have time for this one? Oh, is she here? Fuck it, I'm going with it. So this one I want to share with you. This is what I consider the greatest formula ever written. And it was not written by me. It was, how many people ever heard of a guy named Tom Tobin? So a couple of you guys. So Tom Tobin worked for Salesforce. He was one of their analytics product managers. And I was at my first Dreamforce in 2009, and I was at an analytics workshop that he was running, and he showed this formula, and I was just in awe. And it's called The Power of One. And so I built a little shrine to Tom. If you're on the Answers community, I built this thing called the Altar of Tom Tobin, where I give homage to him, because he created it. Over the years, people attribute it to me, and I have to tell them, like, no, Tom created it. I'm just his apostle spreading his gospel around the world. So, and actually, kind of weird. I built like an avatar for the Altar of Tom Tobin. I just grabbed like a random stained glass window off the internet and pasted his face onto it. But it turns out that stained glass is actually St. Thomas Aquinas, who is the patron saint of mathematics. So, I share this, but Tom really created it. It's called The Power of One, and it's a formula field. And so you open the formula editor on the object, whatever object it is. I create this on every single standard and custom object on my org. The first thing I do when I create a custom object is add a Power of One field to it. So you select formula as the type, and you select number as the result type, and please do not call the field power of 1. I've actually seen this happen. People have like, they create power of 1 fields all over their org, but they name them all power of 1. And then they come to me and they're like, I'm using that power of 1 thing you always brag about, but I can't make sense of these reports anymore. Personally, I name my power of 1 fields after the object I'm placing it on because that's the thing I'm going to be counting. You can get your org, you can call it whatever you want, but don't call it power of 1. So for those of you at the back, it's a pretty complex and powerful formula. So the slides will be available at the end if you can't see it. There's the formula. No, that's it. That's the formula. You open the formula editor, and you type in the number 1, and you hit save. And the moment you hit save, every single record for that object, no matter how old your org is, no matter how many hundreds, thousands, millions, bazillions of records you have for that object, every single one of them will have a 1 in that field. And for as long as you have your org, until the sun burns out, every single record that's created for that object will be stamped with a 1 in that field. So what's the big deal? You create the power of 1 on the opportunity object, you save it, then you open up an opportunity, and there's a 1 in your power of 1 field. What's the big deal? What's so great about that? Here's what's so great about it. Here is a standard plain vanilla opportunities with products report using the standard report record count. I can see that there are 1,076 records in this report. But what? Opportunity owners? Okay, I flunked out of community college, but I think I can count to 6. Accounts? Maybe. Opportunities? Might be. Opportunity products? Could be. Honestly, your guess is as good as mine, and the only way to know for sure is to take your phone off the hook, cancel all your meetings for the rest of the day, click the Show Details button, and count them row by row, record by record, and hope you don't get distracted, lose count, or die of carpal tunnel syndrome before you get to the end. Here's the exact same report after adding the power of 1. Like I said, I create it on every object in my org. Standard opportunity pipeline report, opportunities with products report. I added it to the user. So I grab my user power of 1 field. I add it to my report, and I select summarize sum. I grab my account power of 1 field, add it to the report, select summarize sum. I grab my opportunity power of 1 field. I add it to the report. I select summarize sum. I grab my opportunity product line item power of 1 field. I add it to the report, and I select summarize sum. And then I hit save. This is the same report. I can now validate that, yes, in fact, I can successfully count to 6. Thank you. I can also see that there are 75 unique accounts that have an opportunity within the time frame of this report. I can see that I have 898 opportunity records in this report, and I have 308 opportunity product line items in this report, all using the power of 1. This is the same report that we started off at the very beginning with, and using the power of 1 and those custom checkbox fields and custom formula fields, I can get the count of users, accounts, opportunities, opportunity products, open, closed, won, lost, the revenue open, the revenue closed, the revenue won, the revenue lost, the percent of money won, the percent of money lost, the percent of money open, the percent of opportunities open, the percent of opportunities lost, the percent of opportunities closed. And I did all that using 2 checkbox fields and the number 1. You can do some incredibly powerful things. And you don't have to write a formula that bumps up against the 5K compile size limit and is longer than War and Peace. You can do some incredibly powerful things with some incredibly simple formulas. That's what I wanted to share with you. So where can you learn more? funny you should ask. Chris Duarte and her amazing team at Trailhead, are just doing some amazing things. So there's tons of Trailhead modules out there. I've got my own formula trail mix. Thanks a lot. Oh, if you have, I know I went over, if you have any questions about anything formulas, I'll be outside. I'll be more than happy to talk with you one-on-one about any questions you have about formulas on your org, anything you need help with. Thank you.
So this session has ended, so thank you so much for watching. Now we're all moving rooms for the next session, so check out the agenda on the website to see